"You're so sweet," he groaned against her neck, his breath ragged, his composure shattered. Naomi felt his weight press her deeper into the silk sheets, felt his heart hammering against her chest like it wanted to break through bone and fuse with hers. Kang Junho, the silent dragon. The man who made grown men weep with a single glance. And here he was, trembling in her arms like she'd undone something fundamental inside him. She ran her fingers through his hair, still catching her own breath. Is that an apology or a compliment? He lifted his head, and she saw something she'd never seen before. Vulnerability. Raw and unguarded. "I don't know," he admitted quietly. "No one has ever made me lose control like this." 3 months ago, Naomi Brooks didn't even know this man existed. 3 months ago, she was just a struggling pastry chef trying to survive in Seoul. 3 months ago, she walked into the wrong alley at the wrong time. And everything changed. Before we go any further, if you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Trust me, you don't want to miss where this story goes. Drop a like if you're already hooked, and comment "Sweet Surrender" if you're ready for this ride. Now, let's go back to where it all started. The rain came down in sheets that night, turning Seoul into a blur of neon lights and wet pavement. Naomi pushed through the back door of the restaurant, exhausted from a double shift, carrying a bag of leftover ingredients Chef Park had let her take. Her feet ached. Her back ached. Her pride ached most of all. This wasn't the dream. The dream was her own pastry shop, her creations in gleaming display cases, her name on the door. Instead, she was serving food instead of creating it, watching her visa count down like a ticking bomb. She cut through the alley because it was faster. That was her first mistake. The black sedan was parked at an angle, blocking most of the narrow passage. 2 men in dark suits flanked a third man, forcing him toward the open car door. The third man was bleeding from his temple, pleading in Korean too fast for Naomi to catch. She froze. One of the suits looked up. Their eyes met. Then a face appeared in the car window. Sharp features, cold eyes, an expression of absolute control. He looked at her. She looked at him. The moment stretched like taffy, endless and suffocating. Then the man in the car tilted his head slightly, almost curiously, before the sedan door closed and the vehicle pulled away. Naomi ran. She ran until her lungs burned, until her apartment door slammed behind her, until she'd checked the locks 3 times and wedged a chair under the handle for good measure. She didn't sleep that night. By morning, she'd almost convinced herself it was a fever dream. Almost. She stress-baked croissants until her tiny kitchen smelled like butter and denial, layering dough with trembling hands. The knock came at 7 a.m. Naomi's heart stopped. She considered the fire escape, but her window had been painted shut since before she moved in. The knock came again, polite but insistent. She grabbed her heaviest pan and crept to the door. "Who is it?" "Ms. Brooks." The voice was calm, professional. "We're here to escort you to a meeting." "I don't have any meetings." "You do now." She thought about calling the police. But what would she say? She thought about screaming. But who would come? In the end, she opened the door because the alternative was waiting for them to break it down. 2 men in suits stood in her hallway. They were polite. They were terrifying. And they didn't give her a choice. The building they took her to was sleek and modern, all glass and steel and money. Kong Corporation, the sign read. She was escorted past security, into an elevator that required a special key, up to a floor that probably cost more than her entire life. The office was massive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Seoul like the city was just a possession, another asset to be managed. Behind a desk that probably cost more than her student loans sat the man from the car. Kang Junho. He didn't look up when she entered. Just kept reading some document like she was barely worth acknowledging. An older woman stood nearby, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, watching Naomi with something like sympathy. "You saw my face," Junho said finally, still not looking up. Naomi's grip tightened on the container in her hands. She'd somehow held onto her croissants through the entire abduction. Stress response, probably. "I don't even know who you are. Everyone in Seoul knows who I am." "Well, I'm not from Seoul." The words came out sharper than intended. Fear made her reckless. "I'm from Atlanta, and I've got no idea what I saw or who you are or why I'm here. So if you're going to kill me, can we speed this up?" I have dough proofing at home. Silence. Junho finally looked up. His eyes were dark, unreadable, but something flickered in them. Surprise, maybe. Or interest. The older woman leaned toward him. She's clean, sir. No connections, no affiliations. A pastry chef on an expired scholarship. No threat whatsoever. Hey, Naomi protested weakly. Junho studied her for a long moment. His gaze dropped to the container in her hands. What is that? Croissants. You brought pastries to your own kidnapping? I didn't exactly have time to put them down. Another flicker in his eyes. Almost human. Then he leaned back in his chair. Secretary Yoon retires in 1 month. You'll replace her. Naomi blinked. I'm sorry, what? You wanted to stay in Korea. Now you have a reason. I'm a pastry chef, not a secretary. You were a pastry chef. Now you're whatever I need you to be. He finally held her gaze fully, and the weight of it pressed against her chest. You can keep your life, Ms. Brooks. All I ask is your time. And if I refuse? Secretary Yoon made a small sound of warning. Junho's expression didn't change. Then we'll have a different conversation. One you won't enjoy. It wasn't really a choice. Naomi knew that. But something in her refused to crumble completely. She lifted her chin. Fine. But I'm not bringing you coffee. The corner of his mouth twitched. Just barely. We'll see. The first week was hell. Secretary Yoon trained her with brutal efficiency, drilling schedules and protocols, and the 1,000 small ways Junho demanded perfection. Coffee at 7 a.m. and 3 p.m., temperature exact. Documents organized by priority and color-coded. Appointments scheduled in 15-minute blocks with 5-minute buffers. He requires precision, Secretary Yoon explained. Chaos took his father. He controls everything because he's terrified of what happens when he doesn't. His father. Secretary Yoon's expression softened with old grief. Assassinated. 8 years ago. Young Master Junho took over the family business at 26. He hasn't rested since. Naomi absorbed this, watching through the glass walls of the outer office as Junho conducted meetings with men who looked like they ate fear for breakfast. He never raised his voice. He never had to. She started noticing things. The way he remembered every employee's name, even the night janitor's. The way he sent flowers to a secretary's mother in the hospital without anyone knowing. The way his shoulders tensed when certain men entered his office, like he was bracing for a blow that might come from any direction. He was a monster. Everyone said so. But monsters didn't usually know the janitor's daughter had just gotten into university. By the second week, Naomi had stopped jumping every time he looked at her. By the third week, she'd started talking back. Your 3 o'clock canceled, she announced, setting his coffee down precisely on the designated coaster. Canceled or was encouraged to cancel? Does it matter? It matters if I need to send flowers or a message. Flowers, she said. His wife is having surgery. He seemed genuinely apologetic. Junho nodded, making a note. Send the usual arrangement. Add something for the wife. Something hopeful. You want me to pick out flowers? You have good taste. He didn't look up. The croissants you made were exceptional. Naomi stared at him. You ate them. I had them tested for poison first. Then I ate them. Finally, he glanced up. What? Did you think I'd waste good food? She didn't know why that made her want to laugh. This was insane. He was insane. She was insane for standing here having a normal conversation with a man who'd essentially kidnapped her into employment. I'll have the flowers sent, she managed. She was halfway to the door when his voice stopped her. Ms. Brooks. She turned. His pen was poised over paper, his attention already elsewhere, but his words were deliberate. The lemon in those croissants. Where did you source it? A vendor in Namdaemun. Old lady, sells near the fabric stalls. She gets them from Jeju. He nodded once. Thank you. It was such a normal question. Such a human moment. Naomi walked out more confused than ever. The next day, a top-of-the-line stand mixer appeared in her apartment. No note. No explanation. Just a gleaming machine worth more than 2 months of her rent. She knew it was from him. She didn't know what it meant. The 4th week brought the first crack in his armor. Naomi worked late, organizing files for the quarterly review. The building was empty except for security, the city glittering beyond the windows like scattered diamonds. She was about to leave when she heard coughing from Junho's office. He was still there. Of course he was still there. The man probably slept at his desk. She pushed open the door without knocking. He looked up sharply, irritation flashing across his face, but it faded when he saw her. He looked terrible. Pale, feverish, visibly trying to suppress another cough. "Go home," Naomi said. "I have work. You have a fever. I can see it from here. Fevers pass. So do stubborn CEOs. Usually into early graves." She crossed her arms. "When's the last time you ate?" He didn't answer. That was answer enough. Naomi left without another word. She returned 30 minutes later with soup from the late-night restaurant down the street, a packet of medicine, and the last of her patience. She set everything on his desk. "Eat. Take these. Sleep." That's not a suggestion. Junho stared at the soup like she'd presented him with a live grenade. "What is this?" "It's called someone giving a damn. Don't get used to it." She walked out before he could respond. Before she could do something stupid like care about whether he actually took care of himself. The next morning, the soup container was empty on his desk. The medicine packet was crumpled in the trash. And there was a second-stand mixer in her apartment, this one in rose gold. Naomi laughed until she cried. Then she made him a lemon tart. "All right, we're just getting started and things are about to get intense. If you're enjoying this story, hit that like button right now. Comment lemon tart if you think she's already falling for him. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Join the family so you never miss a story. Now let's keep going." She brought the tart to his office at 3 p.m. alongside his coffee. He looked better. Still tired, still carrying the weight of an empire on his shoulders, but the fever had broken. "What is this?" He eyed the pastry with suspicion. "Lemon tart. Consider it a glad you didn't die gift." "I wasn't dying. Your body disagrees. Eat it." He picked up the small fork she'd provided, cut into the torched meringue, and took a careful bite. Naomi watched his face, waiting for the professional critique, the dismissal. Instead, his expression shifted. Something moved behind his eyes, something old and painful and almost tender. "My mother made something like this," he said quietly. "Before." Naomi held her breath. "Before." The wall came back up so fast she almost felt the impact. His expression smoothed into neutrality, and he set down the fork. "You're dismissed, Miss Brooks." She wanted to push. Wanted to ask about his mother, about the grief she'd glimpsed. But she knew better. Some doors only opened when they were ready. "The tarts are in the break room," she said instead. "For the team. Don't eat them all." She left. When she came back an hour later to collect the plate, every tart was gone. The gala was Secretary Yoon's idea. Her last official event before retirement, and she insisted Naomi attend to observe how high-level functions operated. The dress arrived at Naomi's apartment 3 days before the event. It was midnight blue, floor-length, and fit her curves like it had been sewn onto her body. The note said only, "appropriate attire provided." She knew it was from him. She wore it anyway. The venue was dazzling. Crystal chandeliers, champagne towers, the elite of Seoul gathered in glittering clusters. Naomi felt out of place despite the dress, hyper-aware of the glances she drew. A black woman in a sea of Korean high society. Not invisible, but not quite seen either. Junho arrived late, commanding attention without trying. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than her yearly salary, and when his eyes found hers across the room, something hot flickered through her stomach. He approached, face unreadable. "You came. I was told it wasn't optional." "Everything is optional, Ms. Brooks. Some options just have consequences." "Is that supposed to be comforting?" His mouth curved slightly. "Does it need to be?" Before she could answer, he was pulled away by a group of elderly businessmen demanding his attention. Naomi retreated to the edge of the room, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing server. She didn't see Park Sung-min approach until he was blocking her path. He was handsome in that polished, predatory way that made her skin crawl. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Kang's new secretary, he purred, looking her over like she was merchandise. "I'd heard rumors, but they didn't do you justice. Can I help you with something?" "I'm just curious." He stepped closer. Too close. "What does the silent dragon see in you? Besides the obvious, of course." Naomi stepped back. "I'm his secretary. That's all." "Is it?" Sung-min reached out, fingers grazing her arm. Because from where I stand, you look like someone's pet project. Someone's entertainment. Remove your hand. He laughed. The foreign girl has claws. How charming. Does King know you bite? I don't know. The voice came from behind Sungmin, ice cold and utterly calm. But I'm certain he's about to find out if you don't remove your hand in the next 2 seconds. Sungmin's face went pale. He turned to find Junho standing there, hands in his pockets, expression blank. But his eyes. God, his eyes were terrifying. Like staring into the void and watching it stare back. Kong. Sungmin tried to recover, tried to smirk. Just getting to know your staff. No harm. 1 second. Sungmin's hand dropped. He backed away, muttering something about misunderstandings, and disappeared into the crowd. Junho turned to Naomi. The deadly calm remained, but underneath it, she saw something else. Something frantic. Did he hurt you? No. Did he touch you? My arm. Barely. Junho's jaw tightened. His eyes tracked Sungmin across the room with the focus of a predator marking prey. I was handling it, Naomi said quietly. I know. He finally looked at her fully, and the frantic thing in his eyes softened slightly. But you don't have to. Not anymore. He offered his arm. She took it, unsure why her heart was pounding so hard. They walked back into the crowd together, his hand hovering at her lower back. Not quite touching. The ghost of contact. The promise of it. She didn't let go all night. The car ride home was silent. Naomi stared out the window, watching Seoul blur past, hyper-aware of Junho's presence beside her. He hadn't said a word since they'd left the gala. His hands were folded in his lap, perfectly still. You're angry, she said finally. No. You're something. He was quiet for a moment. Then, Sungmin's family has been a rival of ours for 3 generations. He approached you to get to me. I figured. It worked. He turned his head to look at her. I haven't felt genuine rage in years. I've trained it out of myself. Rage makes you sloppy, makes you weak. But seeing him touch you. He trailed off. Naomi waited. I wanted to kill him, Junho said quietly. Not as a business decision. Not as a strategic move. I wanted to watch the light leave his eyes simply because he touched something that's mine. I'm not yours. No. His voice was heavy with something she couldn't name. You're not. The car stopped outside her building. Neither of them moved. Naomi. It was the first time he'd used her first name. It sent a shiver down her spine. I don't know how to do this. Do what? Care. He said the word like it was foreign to him. About anything beyond the Empire. Anyone beyond my duty. I've been the silent dragon for so long, I've forgotten how to be human. She reached out slowly, giving him time to pull away. Her fingers found his hand, cold and still in his lap. He flinched at the contact but didn't move. When's the last time someone touched you? She asked softly. Gently, I mean. Without wanting something from you. He didn't answer. But the silence said everything. Naomi lifted his hand, pressed his palm to her cheek. His fingers trembled against her skin. I'm not afraid of you, she whispered. I don't know if that makes me brave or stupid. Definitely stupid. But his voice cracked on the word and his thumb moved, stroking her cheekbone with devastating tenderness. She should have gotten out of the car. Should have said goodnight and retreated to the safety of her apartment and her stress baking and her pretense that this was just a job. Instead, she leaned in and kissed him. It was soft at first. Testing. His lips were warm, slightly chapped, frozen with surprise. Then something broke in him, and he kissed her back with all the desperation of a drowning man. His hands tangled in her hair. He pulled her closer, closer, like he was trying to eliminate any space between them. The kiss was messy and starving and nothing like she expected from a man so controlled. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead pressed against hers. Naomi. Her name was a prayer on his lips. I don't know how to be gentle. Then let me teach you. The next week was a careful dance. Stolen glances across the office. Fingers brushing when she handed him documents. His hand lingering on her shoulder when he passed her desk. Each touch was a revelation, a small defiance of everything he'd taught himself to be. But they were both fighting it. Both pretending this was manageable. Secretary Yoon noticed. Of course she noticed. Be careful, the older woman warned on her last day, packing the final items from her desk. Young Master Junho has never loved anything he wasn't prepared to lose. If you stay, you need to know that. What do you mean? Secretary Yoon smiled sadly. He will try to push you away. He will convince himself that distance is protection. And it will hurt. The question is whether you're strong enough to wait for him to realize he's wrong. Naomi didn't know how to respond to that. So she hugged Secretary Yoon goodbye and tried not to think about the warning too hard. 3 days later, the attempt happened. Junho's car was ambushed on the way back from a meeting. Naomi was in the office when the call came, when Daejong's panicked voice cut through the static saying something about gunfire and explosions. The next hour was the longest of her life. When Junho finally walked through the office doors, flanked by guards, she couldn't breathe. His suit was ruined, splattered with something dark. His face was cut, bleeding sluggishly from a gash near his temple. "I'm fine," he said to the room at large. "It's handled." But his eyes found hers, and she saw the truth. He was shaken. Underneath the control, underneath the mask, the dragon was rattled. She followed him to his private office, closed the door, found him standing at the window, hands braced on the frame, head bowed. "Junho, don't." His voice was raw. "Don't come closer." "Why?" "Because if you touch me right now, I'll break." She crossed the room anyway. Stood behind him, close enough to feel the tension radiating off his body. Then she wrapped her arms around him from behind, pressed her cheek between his shoulder blades, and held on. He shattered. The sound that came out of him wasn't quite a sob, wasn't quite a groan. It was something more primal. His hands came up to grip her arms where they crossed his chest, holding her in place like she was the only thing keeping him tethered to earth. "You could have died," she whispered. "I didn't." "That's not the point." "That's not," she pressed harder against him, frustrated. "Does anyone even care? If you died tonight, would anyone actually mourn you? Or would they just fight over the pieces?" He turned in her arms, facing her. His eyes were wet. She'd never seen him cry. Hadn't known he could. "Would you?" he asked, voice breaking. "Would you mourn me?" "Yes." No hesitation. "Yes, I would mourn you. I would fall apart. And I hate that. I hate that you've become so important to me when I never meant to care about you at all." He kissed her. Not like before. This was gentler, more desperate in a different way. Like he was trying to memorize her taste in case he never got another chance. "Come home with me," he breathed against her lips. "Please. I don't want to be alone tonight." She should have said no. Should have maintained some boundary, some pretense of professionalism. "Okay," she said instead. His penthouse was everything she expected. Vast, cold, designed for aesthetics rather than comfort. It looked like a magazine spread, not a home. No photographs. No personal touches. Just expensive furniture and empty space. But Junho led her past all of it, into a kitchen that looked barely used. He started pulling ingredients from the refrigerator with determined focus. "What are you doing?" "Cooking for you." He set down a bag of rice, some vegetables, containers of sauce. "You fed me. I want to return the favor." "You cook." "No." He said it so matter-of-factly that she laughed. "But I watched videos." "How hard can it be?" 45 minutes later, the kitchen looked like a disaster zone, and Junho was staring at a pot of something that might have once been jollof rice with genuine confusion. "The video made it look simple," he said plaintively. Naomi couldn't stop laughing. This terrifying, powerful man had tried to cook her comfort food because she'd mentioned missing it once, weeks ago. He'd remembered. He'd tried. "Move over," she managed, still giggling. "Let me show you." She salvaged what she could, teaching him as she worked. He stood behind her, watching over her shoulder, chin nearly resting on her head. His arms came around her waist as she stirred. "I'm sorry it's not perfect," he murmured. "It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be you." He turned her around. His eyes were soft in a way she'd never seen. "No one has ever said anything like that to me. Maybe no one's ever seen the real you. Maybe I've never let them." He kissed her again, deeper this time. The pot bubbled forgotten on the stove. His hands slid down her sides, gripping her hips, pulling her against him. She could feel how much he wanted her. Could feel his control fraying at the edges. "Junho." She pulled back slightly. We don't have to. I want to. His voice was rough. I want you. But I need you to know that I don't. I'm not good at this. At being close to someone. At being vulnerable. You don't have to be good at it. You just have to be willing to try. She took his hand and led him away from the kitchen. Led him through his empty, beautiful penthouse to a bedroom that probably cost more than her childhood home. The city glittered below them through the windows, souls spread out like a sea of stars. He stood before her, suddenly uncertain. The most powerful man in South Korea, and he was nervous. Naomi reached up and began unbuttoning his ruined shirt. He stood perfectly still, barely breathing, watching her hands like they were performing miracles. The shirt fell away, revealing a body that was all lean muscle and old scars. She traced one that ran along his collarbone, a thick rope of raised tissue. Who did this? My father's enemies. I was 19. They meant to kill me. They failed. She leaned in and kissed the scar. He shuddered, a full-body tremor that made him grip her shoulders for support. You survived, she whispered against his skin. I always survive. Maybe it's time to do more than survive. She pushed him gently toward the bed. He sat, then lay back, looking up at her with an expression of such raw vulnerability that it made her chest ache. She climbed over him, bracing herself on her hands, looking down into his face. Tell me what you need. I don't know. His hands came up to rest on her waist, tentative. I don't know how to need things. I've spent so long being the one everyone else needs that I forgot how to want anything for myself. Then let me show you. What followed was slow, tender. Nothing like she expected from a man with his reputation. He touched her like she was precious, like he was afraid she'd disappear if he held too tight. And when they finally came together, he made a sound she'd never forget. A broken gasp, half pleasure, half disbelief. He didn't last long. She felt him tense beneath her, felt his control shatter completely, felt him come undone with her name on his lips. Afterward, he couldn't meet her eyes. She lay against his chest, listening to his heartbeat slowly return to normal. I'm sorry, he said finally. For what? That was. He struggled for words. You're so sweet. I came in 2 minutes. I couldn't, you made me. She propped herself up to look at him. He was flushed, embarrassed, so different from the cold man she'd first met. Hey. She waited until he looked at her. That's not something to apologize for. I lost control. Yes. And it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. His eyes widened. Beautiful. Do you have any idea what it means to me that I could do that to you? That you trust me enough to let go? She cupped his face in her hands. You spend every moment of every day in control. Letting someone break that open isn't weakness. It's trust. He stared at her for a long moment. Then something shifted in his expression, something new and terrifying and wonderful. I think I'm falling in love with you, he whispered. I think I'm already there. He kissed her again. And this time, they took things slower. We're in the final stretch now, and trust me, you don't want to miss how this ends. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Drop a comment telling me whose side you're on in this love story. And smash that like button to show some love. Now, let's see if these two can make it through the storm. The next few weeks were a dream. Naomi spent nights at his penthouse, teaching him to cook, making him laugh, discovering all the small ways he showed love because he didn't know how to say it. He showed love in security details she never asked for. In the way her apartment suddenly had new locks and a better security system. In the first edition cookbook that appeared on her desk without explanation. But dreams don't last. Not in his world. The photographs appeared on his desk on a Tuesday morning. Naomi arriving at his penthouse. Leaving the next morning. Kissing him in his car. Each image was a threat without words. Junho went cold. Not angry. Worse. Controlled. The dragon returned, and it was terrifying. This was a mistake, he said, not looking at her. Don't you dare. Don't I dare what? Tell the truth. He finally met her eyes, and they were empty. They will use you to destroy me, Naomi. Do you understand that? Everything I feel for you is a weapon they can use. So your solution is to push me away? My solution is to keep you alive. He pulled an envelope from his drawer, set it on the desk. There's a ticket to Atlanta. First class. And enough money to start over. She stared at the envelope. Then at him. You think I want your money? I think you deserve a life that doesn't come with a target on your back. And what about what you deserve? Do you even think about that? She stepped closer, refusing to let him retreat behind his walls. You deserve to be loved, Junho. You deserve someone who sees past the dragon to the man underneath. You deserve to be happy. I don't get to be happy. His voice cracked. I'm the heir to an empire built on blood. My happiness isn't part of the equation. Then change the equation. It's not that simple. Yes, it is. She grabbed his hands, held tight when he tried to pull away. You're so busy being what everyone needs that you've forgotten how to be what you need. And I'm not running. Not from you. Not from this. They will come for you. They will hurt you to hurt me. Then protect me by your side, not by leaving me behind. He broke. The dragon shattered, and the man underneath crumbled into her arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. I don't know how to do this, he confessed into her hair. I don't know how to love someone and keep them safe at the same time. We'll figure it out together. That's what partners do. He pulled back to look at her, his eyes wet. Partners? Did you think this was just casual for me? That I'd let the most dangerous man in Seoul cook me terrible jollof rice and not expect something long-term? He laughed. It was watery and broken and the most beautiful sound she'd ever heard. I love you, he said. I don't know what that means or how to do it right, but I love you. I love you too. Even when you're being an overprotective idiot. He called a meeting that afternoon. His inner circle gathered in the conference room, confused by the unusual summons. Naomi stood beside him, heart pounding. Junho didn't waste time on preambles. Naomi Brooks is no longer just my secretary. She's my partner. My equal. Anyone who threatens her threatens me, and I want to be very clear about what that means. Dae-young, his second in command, looked between them. Sir, with respect, this paints a target. The target already exists. Hiding her didn't keep her safe. So instead, I'm making her untouchable. Junho's voice was cold, commanding. Every resource we have for protection extends to her. Every alliance we hold is now contingent on her safety. Is that understood? The room was silent. Then, slowly, heads nodded. After the meeting, when they were alone, Naomi touched his arm. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. He turned to face her fully. I've never wanted anything for myself, Naomi. Only power. Only survival. Only the next move in an endless game. He took her hands in his. But I want you. I want mornings where you teach me to bake. I want nights where you fall asleep in my arms. I want a life, not just an existence. And I'm done pretending otherwise. She kissed him, soft and sure. Then let's build that life. Together. 6 months later, Naomi's kitchen was no longer tiny. The penthouse had been transformed. Warm colors replaced the cold minimalism. Photographs covered surfaces. Her cookbook collection sprawled across an entire wall. The industrial kitchen was her domain now, and the smell of fresh bread and butter had seeped into every corner. Junho came home late, as always, but the word home meant something different now. He loosened his tie as he walked in, following the scent of something sweet to the kitchen. Naomi stood at the counter, piping decorations onto a cake. She was humming something, lost in concentration. She didn't hear him approach until his arms wrapped around her from behind. Rough day? She asked, leaning back into him. Better now. He pressed a kiss to her neck. What are we celebrating? 6 months since you threatened to kill a man for touching my arm. I didn't threaten to kill him. I implied consequences. You told him you'd remove his hand. Semantics. She laughed, turning in his arms to face him. He looked tired, but peaceful in a way he never had before. The shadows under his eyes were lighter. The tension in his shoulders had eased. He was still the silent dragon to the outside world, but here, with her, he was just Junho. Just hers. I have something for you, he said, suddenly nervous. Another stand mixer? I'm running out of room. Something different. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Naomi's heart stopped. Junho, I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring this out. But I've never been more certain of anything in my life. He opened the box, revealing a ring that managed to be both elegant and modest. Understated. Chosen for her, not for show. I want to spend the rest of my life learning how to love you. Will you let me? She was crying. She hadn't even noticed the tears starting. Yes. Yes, you ridiculous, overprotective, jollof-ruining man. Yes. He kissed her, lifting her off her feet, spinning her around the kitchen they'd made theirs. When he set her down, his eyes were bright with unshed tears of his own. I love you, he said, sliding the ring onto her finger. More than I ever thought I was capable of loving anything. I love you too. She cupped his face in her hands, marveling at how far they'd come. Even when you still can't cook. I'm improving. You burned water last week. It was distracted water. She laughed, pulling him in for another kiss. Outside, Seoul glittered in the darkness. The dangerous world still existed. The threats hadn't disappeared. But in this kitchen, wrapped in each other's arms, they'd built something worth protecting. The dragon had found his sweetness. And she had found her home. And that, my loves, is the end of Sweeter Than Sin. If this story made you feel something, drop a like right now and subscribe to this channel for more emotional, intense stories like this one. Comment below and tell me your favorite moment. Was it when he tried to cook jollof rice? When he confessed in the car? Or when he claimed her in front of everyone? Share this video with someone who loves a good dark romance, and I'll see you in the next story. Until then, stay sweet.